what became clear was the impact of grief, of trauma, of all of these other things that had to be processed and dealt with. And even at the moment, I didn't know what it was. It really was a process to get to that point, and that was a part of my healing journey.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Houghton, and today we're joined by Dr. Santha Naidoo, award-winning concierge physician renowned for her transformative approach to health and wellness. With triple board certifications in family medicine, integrative and holistic medicine, and obesity medicine, she specializes in age management and cellular health optimization. As the founder of the Avyanna Wellness Institute, Dr. Naidoo introduced the 100 Club, an exclusive community emphasizing health optimization, prevention, and personal care. In her best-selling book, Bad to Fabulous, she shares her personal journey of overcoming adversity to inspire others. In today's conversation, we are discussing the importance of a truly personalized approach to wellness and the impact that joy, connection, and purpose have on our health and daily experiences have on longevity. Dr. Santha, welcome to the podcast.
I am so excited to be here, Julie, because I just enjoy so much to share my story and share with others the experiences that have led me to where I am and how it can help them in their health and wellness journey.
Which is amazing. That's why we do this, right? So I think so many of us found our path on our healing journeys by leaning into somebody else's story. So, like so many physicians that I've had on the podcast, I don't think you started out in the functional integrative space. Can you share a bit of your journey that led you to become such a leader in the what I would call the true wellness space?
Actually, I am a little unique in that I did start off my journey in the functional integrative space. I did my training within residency because I knew
Wow.
that it is the healing path and journey that I want to take. It's also the reason why I chose to be an osteopath. But my journey starts when I was really young. When I was 2 years old, I saw a commercial on TV for Kit Kat bars, and I threw a tantrum. I needed it. I want kitty cat. I need kitty cat. My grandfather, he scoured the city of Durban to find me a big box of Kit Kat bars,
Oh boy.
and I ate them all, and I loved them. And my
Mhm.
mother said since then, my belly came out, never went back in. So I was overweight through childhood, adulthood, and through my training, honestly. But a couple of years later, I remember being woken in the middle of the night. My parents bundled us in the car. We were driving to my grandparents' house, and it was different. It wasn't the joyful place, that
Mm.
we usually think of and remember with our grandparents. It was very dark and calm, somber, and my grandfather had taken his life.
Oh,
Really
sorry.
know what it meant at the time, but within 24 hours, he was cremated in the backyard to huge, larger than life flames. I remember my grandmother, excuse me, just so tearful, right?
Oh,
Crying
sure.
puddles of tears, and my mother standing next to her, just stoic and strong, right? And all I could think was, where's my grandfather, you
Sure.
know? And just after that, Michael Jackson had released the song Heal the World, and that somehow just latched on and it became the anthem of my life, right? Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying if you care enough for the living. Make a better place for you and for me. But when I went to medical school, right, and I thought I found the solution, I realized very quickly that
Mm.
medicine is very reactive. It's about
Yes.
diagnosis and diseases and prescriptions. And I knew because I struggled. Despite being a doctor, right, graduating from medical school, I was still tired, fat,
Right.
sick, right? And that's
Yeah.
what led me down during residency, my integrative medicine fellowship, functional medicine training, and obesity medicine as well, honestly, to be able to help myself because the system was not helping me.
Yeah. Amazing. See, so you were one of those brilliant physicians who got it, pretty early on as you were going through, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And for those that are listening on audio, and this is a perfect time to because you share this journey in your book, Fat to
Mhm.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And so for those listening on audio, there is a fit, slender, beautiful woman sitting across from me who just radiates health and wellness. So
Oh, that's very kind of
obviously
you.
you have found the formula, or at least for you. Can you share a little bit about and again, it makes so much sense, you resonating with Heal the World and putting the book out there and because I really do feel like that's the way we create the big change we need to create
Mhm.
is by sharing our journeys. So can you share a little bit of that? Because I know that now you work with a select few patients with highest level of care, but would imagine that your journey has informed your approach.
Yes, there were so many things that happen in life, right? That play a role. Another um, major event that impacted my health, well-being, and even how I show up for other people is when I was pregnant with my first son. At about 20 weeks of gestation, we were in a pretty major car accident.
Oh,
And I was actually driving to my OB appointment, and all of a sudden we see this car just swerving all the way in front of us. And boom, our car was smashed. My husband was panicked, right? He was like,
sure.
didn't know what to do. And I was previously an EMT, so I just went into EMT mode, right? Stay calm, protect the baby. That's the number one thing. And I couldn't get out of the car. So very calmly, I just told him, hey, get out, call 911. And he was just so panicked. He was paralyzed, right? So finally I told him, I can't move, right? And that
You got
that
to do
made him
this.
run. So he gets out of the car, call 911. We get to the hospital, and you know, being a healthcare provider, you kind of and being in emergency medicine at one point, right? The signals that kind of go along. So one of the first things they did was an ultrasound, and they couldn't find the baby's heartbeat.
Mm,
She didn't want to tell me that, right?
yeah.
But I
But
knew.
you
I
were,
didn't
yeah.
wanna say it, to protect my husband at the time, and especially being the first child, right? That was a very devastating moment. But besides that moment being devastating, the years that followed, honestly, 9 years beyond that, I had back pain that just wouldn't go away. All the imaging was normal. I saw every specialist. I'm an osteopath. I've been treated with osteopathic manipulation, all sorts of other healing modalities. And that pain just never went away. And finally, it got to a point, and it was actually during my weight loss journey that the symptoms had worsened. In the
Mm.
meantime, I'm going through a legal battle with the insurance company because they refused to pay for anything because they believed that I'm a physician and because I'm well versed in healthcare, that I'm gaming the system. I'm
Oh
scamming the
gosh.
system because there was no evidence that something was wrong. And there came a point a few years ago, actually in 2023, my grandmother was visiting. She was 84 years old at the time. And she was here for her birthday, and I was determined I'm going to give her the time of her life, have her experience things that I believe she would never experience at all. So I took her indoor skydiving, and as she's
Oh my
sitting down, she's like,
gosh.
I'm deathly afraid of heights. And why'd you agree to do this? And she says, well, because the one thing I've learned in my life is I have to face my fears. And not only did she
Mm,
do that skydiving, she did the high flight on that indoor skydiving.
wow.
We went jet skiing, we went horseback riding, but she was ready and willing and able to go back again and again. But I struggled to get up and say, because my back was killing me, right? And
Mhm.
I had young children. I don't want my children to be growing up with a mother that can't do these things with them. So that was
Sure.
very emotional moment for me. But also upon in time in my weight loss journey where all of a sudden my symptoms had worsened when it should have gotten better, right?
Mm.
And it took a multidisciplinary care team to finally come. As a physician, I couldn't diagnose myself, right? My specialists had a hard time. But ultimately, we got down to a few different routes. One was it was actually not a back injury, it was actually an abdominal injury. And so I needed
Goodness.
surgery and I needed time to heal from that. But also, what became clear was the impact of grief, of trauma, of all of these other things that had to be processed and dealt with. And even at the moment, I didn't know what it was.
Right.
It really was a process to get to that point, and that was a part of my healing journey. Fast forward, I ultimately had the surgery after a lot of humming and hawing of, oh, well, I've dealt with it for so long already. How can I take 12 weeks off of work? Who's going to help me? It's going to be too much for the husband. But again, that s- instance with my grandmother was just the, nail on the
Yeah.
top, essentially. And I went
Sure.
ahead, and to me, the most fascinating thing happened was that when I went through the surgery, my community came forward to me. I always see myself as the healer, as I'm the giver. I help others. That's what brings me joy, right?
Sure.
I never expect anything in return. And here I had my boss offering to take the kids for their classes, patients bringing food over, for the family,
Sure.
people offering to just sit outside with me just to get some fresh air as I'm recovering. People that I didn't even consider necessarily to be in my community
Right.
just showed up.
Yeah.
And that sped up the healing process. That is what really helped me stay joyful, stay present, remind myself of the purpose and the value of having people in a community around you. And that was, probably a pivotal moment career-wise, right? Because
Yes.
all of these stories and the healing from these stories and these journeys that we all have and we all experience, that goes beyond the prescription, the diagnosis,
Yes.
and things like that. And a lot of people thought when I put out Fat to Fabulous, they thought this is uh, a weight loss manual. And it's
Gotcha.
not. It's really it's all my
It's your
stories, and
journey.
it
Yeah.
was my journey, and I put it down for my own healing, first of all, but also in hopes that other people see themselves and say, "Okay, how could I apply this in my own life?" Or,
Yeah.
"How could I think about this maybe differently?" Or, you know, what the value of a 10-minute walk out in the sunshine barefoot, on the
Yeah.
ground, how healing that can be for the immune system, the cardiovascular system, the nervous system, all of these things. We spend so much time and energy on supplements, on, expensive treatments, on pharmaceuticals, but yet we don't leverage what we've learned growing up,
Yeah.
what nature provides for us, and that provides so much more healing than all of
Yes.
these other things with less time, I believe,
Yeah. Well, if it's just incorporate, I mean, it's incorporated in the day. I
Exactly.
want to ask you, because something came up for me listening to that healing journey, and I'm going to start with just a question. Before the experience with the surgery and really realizing how community, would show up for you, um, w- throughout your life, had you learned to allow others? Because it's so common for the caretaker to, I got it all, and I'm good. I don't need help. And I have found for so many of us on healing journeys, realizing it usually out of necessity, but that allowing others to help,
Yeah.
not only is it a
Allow
gift.
yourself to receive in
Yes,
general,
that receiving.
and um, that's a great question because, and again, it's something that I realized after the aha moment, right?
Uh-huh,
I
sure.
grew up with strong community. I grew up in apartheid South Africa. And, you know, with the apartheid regime and the segregation isolation, communities had to stick together.
Sure.
So my aunts and uncles were like my parents. My cousins
Right.
were like my siblings. My neighbors were like my aunts and uncles. That's how we grew up. But yet, over the course of time, the the thoughts, the beliefs, the patterns of thinking, and this is again such a huge thing that I
Yes.
talk to my patients about, creep in of I have to be strong, I have to
Yeah.
be resilient, I have, all of these things,
Mhm.
and block out those
Right.
initial moments that we may have gathered. And some people may not have experienced that, but realize the value because they have not experienced that.
Right.
Right. So for me, now I look back and I realize, it was almost a defense mechanism, right? I was too
Survival
It was,
skill.
right?
Yeah.
As a young child, I was isolated because in elementary school, I was the first person of color in an all-white school. So I didn't look like the kids
Yeah.
there. I didn't talk like them. I didn't live where they lived. I didn't bring the same lunch they brought. And even, my mother instilled at such a young age, about preservatives, colorants, additives. So they're having these juices and cookies and stuff that even that I'm not allowed to have, So
Right.
I was
It's
completely
okay. Let them
person,
have the Kit Kats.
right? I was a completely different person.
Sure.
And, so I had realized that my defense mechanism was do what I do best, which is to give, right? I
Yeah.
learned
That's your
already
in.
at exactly that young age that I take care of people, and that's what I do. And and it wasn't even about, again, the availability of help, from
Right.
a lot of people, and for most people who have access to listen to podcasts, right?
Mhm.
Even even if you didn't have a, parent, sibling, close friend, most of us have the ability to hire help, right? That availability is there, but we have to be able to allow
Yes.
access and to allow ourselves to receive. And this is I actually am selective of the patients that I
Sure.
uh, enroll in my program because I need patients to understand that, again, for me, it is not a quick fix. It is not about, you have high blood pressure, here's a prescription for lisinopril.
Right.
We really dig deeper into all of these aspects of relationships, of communication, of uh, community, of purpose, of um, giving back, and we do events together, and we have a community amongst us, to promote those aspects of wellness and healing.
Yeah, which is so amazing. And you mentioned a couple times the word purpose. And is one of the reasons I was so excited to speak with you, because these are the things that I say we warn people at our clinic, like this is part of wellness. But I find it's heartbreaking how many people, when they first step through the door and you ask about purpose, and they just glaze over.
Yeah,
They're out of touch with purpose, or I mean, it's like just something they haven't even considered.
yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. We talk a lot about blue zones. I know you do too. And I love the again, is why I got goosebumps because it's back to nature, right? You mentioned
Yes.
walking barefoot in the sunlight, it's like it can be that simple
Uh-huh.
of living how we were designed to live, which includes community and purpose.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's all this, what do they eat in the blue zones and what do they but purpose is such a big part of the longevity factor in
Yeah.
those community and you can't separate, right? It's like the body. We can't just treat one system.
Exactly.
It's not just
The
purpose, it's also
system that works
community.
together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, this is something, it took me a while to understand, and a friend of mine had pointed out, he said to me, he says, you were so lucky because you clearly had a sense of purpose from very young.
Right.
He's been
Yep.
a friend of mine for decades, and so as I mentioned, I was clear from a very young age how I wanted to show up as a doctor.
Right.
And so initially it was difficult for me to understand why it is this concept is so foreign to other people, right? And how do you bring this up or kind of inch your way there,
Yeah.
right? And so what I start off with is the basics of what do you enjoy,
Yes.
right? What brings you joy? What was some of the best memories in your childhood, right? That because those are the things
Yep.
that you know uh, that kind of align with purpose for a lot of people.
Sure.
And sometimes it's not the best thing. Sometimes it is tragedy, like in my case, right? Where you take the tragedy and you're
Right.
determined to make something different. And so that's what I start off with, right? What
Yeah.
brings joy? And it is fascinating that these days a lot of people struggle
They don't
with
know. Yeah.
and then that's my homework for them. Start off
Mhm.
with that. Try out different things. Speak to people from your past, right? Previous friends, and jog your memory of the things, or take a moment to journal 10 minutes a day and just
Yeah.
think about life experiences and memories pop up, right?
Sure.
Um, and to me, that's a great place to start off with. And what brings you joy may be an experience, but it may also be a feeling. For me, the feeling of giving brings me
Yes.
joy. That
Right.
that is like my zen, my calm is when I'm giving. And giving in any way, whether it's giving time, money, food,
Just
healthcare,
being a
just
contribution.
just
Yeah.
exactly contributing. That brings me zen, right?
Yeah.
Um and then start incorporating those things in your life. And I recently, actually for my wedding anniversary, I had an event with my patients and my family. And the theme for the event was love, inspiration, and gratitude.
Love it.
And so that's how we started off. And it was just a social, wine and apps and hang out type of thing. And it was fascinating to hear the stories from my patients afterwards, right? Uh, I mean, one aspect was the aha moment of, "Oh, wow, you actually walk the walk that you tell us," right?
Right.
Which was kinda cool. I was
You're
like,
living it.
"Yeah,
Yep.
you really didn't think that I was?" That was actually a huge part of why I started my practice the way I did, because I felt like I had to be authentic in that way, right?
Sure.
But, the second thing, there was a patient that came, to me for a visit afterwards, and, she told me she called me up, she says, "Dr. Knight, I've been experiencing some anxiety lately." And so I said, "Okay, let's go meet on this walking trail, we'll go take a walk together." And she was like, Really?" I said, "Yeah. You said anxiety, you brought yourself some fresh air, some movement, some sunlight, and some connection time,
Connection.
you know?
Yep.
Much better than having the computer screen between us." So we go for this walk, and she said to me, she says, I thought my anxiety was coming from there was something that happened in the news that resonated with her, and she thought that was building up her anxiety." And she says, I feel like I'm an anxious person, and in hearing you talk, the realization was she was a new empty nester as well. She says, I have lost touch with my sense of purpose, and that's what was creating my anxiety. She said,
Sure.
as my children are leaving their home, my husband travels a lot. Um, in that moment, as you were speaking, I realized it's not true clinical anxiety.
Right.
It's that I have lost my way toward my purpose,
Yeah.
right? And, for me to hear that coming from her instead of me being the one to bring it
Right.
up,
Yeah.
right, it just felt like such a triumph in that moment. And where she
Yeah.
said to me, says, I started off thinking she was on medication previously. She said, I started off thinking I needed to get back on medication. But after hearing you and thinking about this and thinking about what I want to do, uh, I've realized that medication is not what I need right now.
Yeah.
And so, I prompted her a little bit more and asked, so what have you come up with? Right. And she
Yeah.
says, and this was an interesting because I'd never heard this from anybody before. She said, what I had realized is my purpose now is different than my purpose in my younger days.
Sure.
And even that was an eye-opening moment for me because, you
Not
know
all of us have that one.
exactly, and I haven't had that. I'm sure at some
Right.
point I will, but I
Maybe.
haven't experienced that, right?
Yeah.
And so she says, "So now I have to go back and think about, you
The
know,
yeah.
what is my purpose and drive now?" And we did talk about, what did she do for work? And she made it clear, she said, "I don't wanna do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's not what brings me joy anymore. I want to show up differently for the world at this moment, and we're gonna figure that out."
Yeah. I love I love not knowing where we're gonna go when we start the conversation, because I really do feel like no there aren't enough, especially when you're talking about, a physician relationship, but just not enough conversations about purpose, and you also again, because it's all integrated, you talk about joy,
Yes.
and it is, especially although I see it a lot in men as well, for different reasons, but especially, moms who have raised kids and they find, it's this natural time to realize like your purpose, you may need a new purpose or need to adjust. Um, but that again, it's that blank look of I don't know, nobody taught young mothers like it's important for you to have joy, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
and
and this is
yeah,
such like, medically, this is such an important thing
yes,
because, right now, I'm gonna say hormones is a buzzword, right?
yes,
Especially for women, even for men, right?
yeah,
Everybody looks like w probably one of the most common requests I get is for new patients, "Will you check my hormones?"
yeah,
I'm like, "Yes, I'll check your hormones," but that's not always
and
exactly,
yeah,
that's it the many, many, many occasions, the hormones are fine, right?
yeah,
And one of the things that I think about as I'm reviewing data is because I'm very evidence-based, I'm
yeah.
data-driven, I was a math major in college, like, I'm a science math
She's
person, right?
real. She likes her numbers.
Exactly. So, but when to me, the important thing is to look at patterns. It's not just about one number on the page, it's about the
Yes.
patterns of the overall picture.
Yeah.
And if the pattern does not fit the clinical picture, or if we're doing things that should be helping that, and that's not working, then
Mhm.
there's something deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
Then it's not the prescription, the supplement, the diagnosis. It's how is your body processing your experiences? I don't know if you've heard of, and for the audience, there's a book called The Body Keeps the
Oh
Score.
gosh, yeah.
And I don't recall the author's name, but it's all about the impact of it's primarily about trauma, but I say all of our life experiences, whether
Yes.
you perceive it as traumatic or not. I'll be honest, I actually never perceived my grandfather's death as traumatic.
Sure.
I knew I was aware of it. I never felt sad about it as an adult,
Mhm.
growing up or anything like that. But it's more as I dug deeper that the realization of how much this has impacted my
Yeah,
life.
where did this pattern start?
Exactly,
Yeah.
that it made a difference. And it's one of the reasons why in my practice, I choose primarily not to do office visits. I try and meet the patient where they're comfortable, right? If they will go with me on a walk, I will take them on a walk. If they will allow me in their home, I'll see them at home, because it's the things that in an office I won't see.
Yeah.
Like, I do osteopathic manipulation, and I did have an experience where I was doing manipulation on a patient, and their spouse had walked in and asked a very simple question. It was not anything, you know, anything impactful or very simply asked a
Seemingly.
very
Hmm.
question. Exactly. Simple question. But then the patient that was in front of me, the way they reacted and responded, I was
You got to see the
like,
dynamic.
right, exactly. And so I brought it up to them and I said, "Hey," and in light of the symptoms that they were experiencing, that again, we tried the things that should have worked and didn't work.
Right.
And I said, "Okay, this is a very different perception dynamic. Why is that? Is that how it is always?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" They didn't even
They're
realize.
not aware. Yeah.
Exactly. And as that conversation continued, it became clear and brought back to first a experience in childhood
Mm.
that was relived decades later, and now the thought of the spouse being like, the person from childhood.
Mhm.
And that changed my entire treatment plan for this
Right.
individual, right? Because now we were using prescriptions.
Right.
Now we moved away from prescriptions. We were
Different
healing,
homework.
but it was healing the physical body with manipulation, with physical therapy. But then he had homework to do
Right.
on the side as well, right? And it just that combination of all of it
Yeah.
is what creates a significantly better result, you know? Um, yeah,
And
just
long term, right?
and
Like, we're talking about longevity and long-term wellness and true healing
yeah,
from, people are always asking, "Well, do you think your RA symptoms would ever come back?" And I'm like, "Well, if I was living like I was back then,
yes,
sure. Why
yes,
wouldn't
we can
they?"
revert back. And sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes I
Yeah.
had a patient who had severe, RA actually also, and was on biologics, tried everything, couldn't
Yeah.
get in remission.
DMARDs,
Would
biologic, you name it.
right.
Mhm.
Went through the process, and she was in total remission, not even needing ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Few years later, she comes back to me, this is many years ago. She comes back to me, and all of a sudden she had a flare-up,
Mhm.
and we're both trying to figure out what is going on. And she had a favorite restaurant that she went to. They changed the chef, and she had done her due diligence. She
Mhm.
still ordered what she always ordered. She
Right.
asked them, was there any changes to the recipe? None of it.
No, yeah.
And, but then, the next time she went and she was talking to the manager of the restaurant and just explaining this thing, 'cause she frequented it, so she was known, right? And he said, "I think the only change is that the chef put paprika for color on the chicken." And she's like, "It was the paprika," you know?
Nightshade sensitive, yep.
Exactly, exactly, and it's like, okay, but, she's now so aware of her body, she
Mhm.
knows where to look, she
Right.
knows what to search for, she knows what
Yeah.
she to do to
And
undo that.
sometimes it can be a stressor, right?
Yes,
It
yes,
doesn't have to be, although that's usually the first place we think is like, "What did I eat?" "What have I"
yeah,
but
yeah,
it can be a stressor, it can be a, post-viral inflammatory response, and just like we have patterns, our body has patterns.
exactly,
Uh,
and my goal is to teach people, how do
yes.
you identify these patterns, and how can you know, when is it do I need to be thinking about my gut? When is it do I need to be thinking about my hormones? When is it
Yeah.
do I need to be just taking a step back and focusing on rest and relaxation to rebalance all of these things? And this is where I do love, trackers, things like
Yes.
Whoop and
Yeah.
Aura Ring as well, because on many occasions, especially with high functioning people, right? And
Yeah.
uh super successful people, a lot of times I hear where I see the evidence that the body is stressed,
Yeah.
I will hear, "But I don't feel it. I don't feel stress," right? Because it's just their MO.
It's
It's just
their
the way they
typical.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's been and this actually was a big aha moment even for me, when I first got my Aura Ring and I found that my stress levels were worse in my sleep. I
Yeah.
was like, "What? I've never seen this. This is ridiculous. Is this thing even accurate?" Like, asking myself all these questions. And then
Sure.
it prompted me then to think
Yeah.
about, okay, what am I doing before sleep? Or what's going on when I'm sleeping? And for
Yeah.
me, it sounds I'm not an anxious person at all. So this is not an anxiety thing I should say, I don't feel this is an anxiety thing for me. But my sleep time is my visionary time. That's when I'm
Yes.
thinking about what
Busy.
do I wanna do with my patients?
Mhm.
What do I wanna do next? Where do I wanna go? Like,
Yeah.
it's that my brain is working from that standpoint, and it's joyful for me, but apparently my body perceives it as stress.
Right.
So now what I
That
do
I
yeah,
wanna sorry, I got excited because that's the we think of stress as bad,
yeah,
and it's not, and we have to remember that even a positive event, it can be a stressor on the body. It
yes.
doesn't, you
Yes, and
know
we need stress.
yeah,
It's
it's how we
not
grow.
about getting rid of stress. It's about managing how our body perceives the stress, right?
Yes.
So for
Yeah.
me, what I did is I started journaling about 10, 15 minutes before bed.
To
Get
get it
all these
out.
things out of my head onto
Yep.
paper. And so even at nighttime then, if something creeps in, I can remind myself, okay, I processed some of this stuff and I'll remember to do it in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And I have noticed actually last night was a particularly restful night, yet I didn't sleep for long. I typically say 8 to 9 hours is what my body loves.
Uh-huh.
Last night I slept for 6 hours and I woke up without an alarm before the sunrise. I actually posted something this morning because I'm like, this is unheard of. I do not
Yes.
wake up before the sun. And woke up before the sun and enjoyed my walk, got some meditation, yoga, breathing in, grounding on the grass and just it changed my day. It
Yeah.
changed my outlook and just paying attention to these small details that can have significant impact.
Yeah. I can totally see that my very first client when I opened my coaching business used to get tons of REM and like literally minutes of deep sleep.
Uh-huh.
And same thing is because he was, a doer, multiple companies, and we laugh at. He's now a dear friend, and we laugh about it now. It's took years
Yeah.
of all the things, including circadian rhythm, and I love for listeners who are like, huh, that you gave such a great tip there of like doing that brain dump.
Yes.
They even make for people that still may pop with ideas in the middle of the night, they make a pen that has a little red light so that
Oh,
you could keep next to the bed, but so you can write something down, but you're not getting you don't have to turn the lights on or anything.
share that with me. I've
Very
never seen
fun.
that.
I will.
Yeah, I never hear that. And so you bring another great point that I find myself talking to patients a lot about, which is the circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
And people think about circadian rhythm as just your wake up and sleep time, right? But
Yeah.
circadian rhythm is far beyond that. It's essentially the entire rhythm of your body that impacts every aspect and every system of your body. From the moment you wake up and everything you do throughout the day, when you eat, how you eat, what you eat, when are you looking at the sunlight, how are you moving throughout the day? Um, when are you looking at your devices and all of these different things that impact what, the middle of the night might look like for you. And
Right.
what I think a lot of people are unaware of, people know generally that insulin and cortisol and, testosterone, like all of these different hormones play a role in our health, and especially with autoimmune stuff or with weight management or, um, uh, all these different things. But those are the most common things that come up, right?
Sure.
But the important thing about circadian rhythm is that you really are setting your body up from the moment you wake up.
Yeah.
And even although I say I never wake up, before the sunrise,
Typically. Yeah.
yeah, I if I do, then one of the things I do is I try and be outside for that first morning light, right?
Yeah.
Getting that first morning light in your eyes, unfiltered, no glasses, even for your skin, no
Yeah.
sunscreen, 2 minutes, you're not going to get skin cancer because of that. There's far more benefits, to that. Sets you up for what the evening looks like, what your
Yes.
hormones look like throughout the day, how your cardiovascular system responds, how your nervous system responds.
Yeah.
So, it's important to think same thing with the nutritional aspect of it. One of the things that drives me nuts is when the general thinking of intermittent fasting is, oh, I should just skip breakfast and eat dinner at 8 o'clock at night. And it's like, it's about your circadian rhythm. It's not just
Yeah.
about having
This
16 hours of
this
no.
one thing, right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Well,
and
and it is so fascinating when I think of, like, modern times and how astray perhaps we've gotten, but the again, it's living with our biology, right? And people want and we do fun, fancy stuff at the clinic too. People want the buzzy, shiny,
yes,
they want to play with this or try that. And it's like, okay, but you gotta be doing the foundational
exactly.
things
Well,
first.
because the other thing is, frankly, they're wasting their money, right? Because
Yes.
if your core is
Yeah.
not functioning well, then yes, those things can be helpful, but it would be exponentially helpful,
Yeah.
if you're functioning well. But the
Right.
other thing that I identify with, and another concept that I put a lot of emphasis on with my patients, is that we also can't do everything, and we can't do everything all the time.
No, and it's not about perfection.
Exactly. It's about just getting something done that moves the needle forward, that resonates with you, that you can be intentional about, that um that fits in your life and the way you want to live life. And this is one of the reasons that I do integrate traditional medicine with, functional medicine and, I'm going to say old world wellness because,
Yeah.
if I had a patient, for example, who said to me, Dr. Naidu, I'm on diabetes medicine, blood pressure, and cholesterol medicine, and I want to get
I would say,
all of
"Great,
them.
easy fix."
And that was my response. I
Yeah.
said, "Well, this is fine." And where her numbers were too, I'm like, "This is actually pretty easy. We can do
Right.
this." Well, I had a follow-up with her, gave her a plan, right? I had a follow-up with her in 3 months just to see, "Hey, how things going?" And she says, I've been so strict with my diet and with doing the movement and struggled with some of the supplements, but did most of it. And yet her numbers didn't move. And I was like, this is interesting, right?"
Mhm. Tell me more. Yeah.
Exactly. So we dug a little bit deeper and I learned that she does a lot of travel and they have a lot of business dinners and stuff like that. And one non-negotiable thing for her was, I can be very good when I'm home, but when I'm traveling or when I have these business
Mhm.
things, I'm whatever is there, whether it's the alcohol, whether it's the food,
Yeah.
I don't want to get rid of that. And I had to have the honest conversation of,
Right.
you can't have it both ways, right?
That's not a if it's not like she's talking about 1 trip a year, if that's part of her
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So the conversation then switched to, okay, what brings you the most joy? How do you want to balance these two goals that you
Yeah.
have, the way that you choose to live your life? And, how do we make it that maybe we're on the lowest effective dose of your prescriptions? We lower the doses instead of getting rid of them, or we get rid of one, two, in of
Yeah,
those.
or you start to make changes when you travel where it's
Exactly. Or
easy and then you
exactly. Or, out of 3 business dinners, you decide I'm gonna be
which
good for
one?
1,
Yeah.
right? And be selective from that standpoint. Or how do I make decisions when I travel? Things like that.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's important that you're only healthful and well if you're joyful, right? But if you
Right.
feel like you're constantly restricted or you're having an entire meal full of supplements or
Yeah.
you have to be so perfectly good, then I don't wanna live that way,
Yeah. Well,
My
and it's not sustainable. I say, we can all white knuckle it for a little
yes, a
while, but
while.
we're
Right.
talking about true lifestyle.
Yes.
And that's what
Exactly,
I
and that's
love
the
about
point.
your your approach is it's personalized medicine.
Yeah.
Because if we can't create the habits and truly create that lifestyle,
Yeah.
we're not gonna have long-term
Mhm.
wellness.
And for me, this was a very personal example where my weight goal was 125 pounds, and I got to 127. My patient started saying, "Hey, Dr.
Are
Naidoo,
you okay?
are you sick? Is everything
Oh,
okay?" And I didn't see it. I still felt like I had,
sure.
weight to lose, and which ultimately was actually loose skin
Right.
than weight. But and I was like, I have to get to that
The
ideal
numbers,
body
girl.
weight, right? I had to get to that ideal body weight.
Yeah,
For me, type 2 diabetes is something that I've struggled with, and with everything that I've done, my numbers were not improving. So that was the other metric that I was looking at, right?
sure.
And but it did come to a point where I did do the skin removal, and I was like, "Okay, now I get it. It wasn't all
It was
fat,"
that, yeah,
you
skin,
know?
2 pounds of skin.
Yeah, and then second of all, so after I had my surgery, from my abdomen in 2023, I gained about 10 pounds, and I realized, you know what? This is actually my happy weight. This is
Yes.
where I feel good, I look good. If for me, it's at home, I'm very good, but if I want to travel and try out what the locals are eating,
Yeah,
I can do it, and it's easy enough to revert back,
yeah,
without feeling like I have to white knuckle, and it is a true lifestyle and able to maintain, because that's the biggest challenge with weight loss, right? You lose it, but
sure.
how do you maintain it?
Right.
And it just becomes a freedom around your health, and that's to me the most important thing.
I love that you said that, the shared, the personal. I think we all can do that with ourselves.
Yeah.
just went through this with a client who just, lost, my gosh, almost 50 pounds, which was beyond the original goal, but
Mhm.
kinda same thing. She had this ideal weight. She also is a numbers person. And she had this number of, that's when I felt the best, and I'm like, and that was also before you had kids and before, our
Yeah,
bodies change.
yeah,
Let's not go for the number.
yeah.
And also
And
the
for longevity, we cannot lose the muscle.
I was
We
just
have to
thank you. I was
maintain the
just gonna say,
muscle.
it's
Yeah,
not about your weight. It's about your
that's
metabolism,
longevity. Yeah,
and that's the key to, especially in this. Why we love peptides, and GLP-1s can be amazing,
yeah,
but not in a vacuum. Not
yeah.
less Kit Kats,
Yes.
right? But it's, if I think it's such a disservice for people that are losing weight and not focusing on muscle,
100%.
because that's where that bounce back comes from, and now your metabolism's even slower than when you started, and so, I
Right,
love
and
that
it
you
takes this
shared.
cascade, this domino effect on the
Yeah,
rest of the health, right? And
yes,
yeah, yeah, I do have a little pooch. I do have, I could suck in a few things here and there, but to me, it's
but are
how I
you a
live my life.
swimsuit model? Is it
No,
impacting
it's
your
how
career?
I'm comfortable, right? I'm comfortable
Yeah,
in a swimsuit. It's how I live my life joyfully and
yeah,
healthfully. I do
yes,
track my numbers. My dad had a heart attack at the age of 39. I know I have the gene for it. I was deathly terrified that at 39 I was gonna drop dead.
yeah,
But I track all of these metrics,
right,
um, because yes, I am a numbers girl, but I see what is it, and the most fascinating for me is that, again, it's not necessarily about when I deviate from, um, uh, I am on a prescription for the diabetes, right? So when I'm
yeah,
deviating from my prescription, or, when I am, and I don't overindulge, but when I indulge, it's
right,
about when I'm stressed out. It's about when I'm
yeah,
not sleeping well. It's
right,
about when I'm not hydrating well. That's when my numbers go off, even
right.
more so than the rest of it?
I love that you said that. I was thinking of that earlier. I love when people experience wearing a CGM for the first time. Yes, to learn, there's just so much value in really understanding your body's responses to things, but the best part is when people see it, it's so impactful versus I can say it and say it and say it, of the body's response to stress.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
I had a client who was doing keto and was really doing keto, but I was like, I want you to wear one anyway. There will be learning.
Yes.
Let's do it. And it was like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, yeah, it is. It's so empowering to really understand the different inputs. And I love that you said that for me, the if I am like a hardcore dedicated sleeper. But my lifestyle is different now than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I notice, if I have one night that's a little short, that's fine. But if I start to stack those nights together where somebody else might not blink, oh, 6 hours, that's not that bad, But for me, I can't, if I do that 2, 3 nights and beyond that, I will start to feel the inflammation
Yes.
starting.
Yes.
And so I love that you share. It's those are often, and the water we always joke about sometimes it's a good reminder of, even for us, like, to ask people, do you drink enough? What do you drink enough water? Do
Yeah.
again, basics, right? Are you hydrating? Pooping? Are you sleeping? Are you moving? Um,
The funny thing is this is for me, as I mentioned, it's important to live what I practice and
yes.
and maybe a month ago, I did have a few back-to-back late nights
Yeah.
catching up with certain things,
Human.
right? And one morning, my son, he just turned 10, he comes up to me, and he's like, "Oh, Mama, you look awful." And I said, "Yeah, I'm just tired." And
Yeah.
he said to me, he says, "This is not okay. You tell everybody the importance of sleep. I don't understand why you're working till late in the night when you know how important it is for your health.
It's
You
so
need to be doing it too." So they keep me accountable. My
I
patience
love it. Of
is
course.
amazing. But one last thing I want to say is also that there's a lot of things, as we pointed out, right? There's a lot of things out there, and health is and wellness is so personalized and individualized. And uh, one thing that I do now that I think is a game changer in my practice is that um, I I I literally get to the cellular level in terms of personalization. And so for so many people, there's this aha moment of, wow, I thought I was doing things so healthy, right? I
Yeah.
was eating these healthy foods. But the realization is what's healthy for me, it's
Yep.
not healthy for you, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing, people talk about, I'm going to get a little political here, right? People talk about vaccines, people talk about prescriptions. But the reality is, you can eat a strawberry and have anaphylaxis and die, right?
Sure.
Everything has risks, benefits, side effects, interactions, right? You can have
Yeah.
omega 3s and bleed out when you have surgery because of the thinning effects, right?
Yeah.
We think that everything is so fantastic in the natural realm, but the reality is, even in that, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to how do you move, when it comes to what should I be eating,
Yeah.
even that is personal. And so, you know, doing a chia pudding with golden milk can be absolutely awful for you, right? It may not be
Sure.
an option for you, but be a
Yeah.
superfood for somebody else, and
I
that's really
was I was sensitive to turmeric,
yeah,
because I was probably pounding it for years when my RA was
pretty
out of
amazing,
control
yeah,
and I had leaky gut.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I love that you highlight that. And we have covered a grand scope. And I also want to thank you and appreciate you for sharing so openly. I've had so many people say, people will hear my story and they'll show up and be like, well, I want to get off my medications. And I'm like, like you did, because they'll hear, I was, but mine weren't working, um, or I wouldn't be here, right? I would
yeah,
just be. But and I've shared this before on the podcast. I take thyroid hormone. I will fight you in an alley. You may not have my thyroid hormone. You can have my
yeah,
wallet. I just, to me, there's no like badge for, I'm not ever using a pharmaceutical, or it's about what do you need to do to live your best, fullest life for as
Exactly.
long
For
as
you.
possible.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I just wanted to like genuinely from the heart appreciate you showing up so openly, like, hey, look, the standard is, full life.
Yes.
And yes, I'm doing my part. I'm sleeping, I'm walking, I'm hydrating, I'm,
Yes.
contributing, I'm joyful, I'm connected, but, and my body needs some help with this thing,
Yeah.
so I appreciate that.
These days, and I see it a lot, especially in the work that I've done, I'm going to say in the last 5 years or so, right? That people believe that you have to be wealthy to be healthy, right? Because
Mhm.
you have to buy the
Yeah,
certain types of food or the pay for this, even if it's a peptide, right? And
right.
and yes, those things can be good and helpful, but I just like to remind people that true health is real wealth, right?
I
Is
love that.
you
Yeah.
you cannot you can be the wealthiest person
Uh,
and sick and miserable, right?
yeah,
When you're truly living healthfully, joyfully, with
yeah.
purpose, and showing up the way your best self should show up,
Mhm.
that's the real wealth.
Yes. Amen. I love that. So we're at the point where people are listening in because they know, even though you've already given us so many amazing nuggets, I'm going to ask you for one step that listeners can take starting today to support their health.
I think the number one thing is to take a moment to assess your life, whether it's your whole life, whether it's a day in your life, and identify what's one thing that I can change that could be a lasting change that's doable for me that would impact from all the things that we've talked about.
Yeah,
Just one thing. Start with one. Start with one
love it.
day, one moment. Pick that one thing.
Ah, and maybe listen to this again and you'll get some more ideas.
I always say that, come back. Come back to
Yes.
the tests, come back to the
Yes.
recommendations. Don't feel like you have to implement everything. Implement one thing, come back in maybe 6 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Once this thing is a habit,
Yeah.
come back and add the next thing.
So much gold. For people that are listening on the go and aren't going to check the notes, where is the best place to find more of you?
My website is www.lasantha.com. All my social media handles are on the website, on Facebook and Instagram,
Perfect.
as well as LinkedIn and YouTube. And I do have a book coming up. I
Oh,
wish
a
I had
new
the cover readily available to share with you, called The 100 Life, and
Ah,
that would be released around mid-January.
nice. Amazing. Dr. Lasantha, thank you so very, very much. This has been impactful. And I really do. Everybody take the advice, come back in a few weeks and listen again. Because there are just so many layers here and yes, while everything is personalized, I would say listen through that lens of what resonates with me. Like you said, where can I start? And just so much value here. So appreciate your time and your wisdom.
This is a wonderful conversation, so thank you, Julie.
For everyone listening, remember you can get those show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. helping you take your power back.